Arcane Odyssey is a huge MMORPG game with lots of content and many complex mechanics. There is almost an endless amount of things you can do in this game, from fighting bosses for the rarest of loot, quests from NPCs, fishing for rare armors and weapons, exploring the whole world for secrets, becoming a devoted iris worshipper, dive into the depths of the ocean for underwater structures, fighting pirates to steal all their chests, join clans and take over islands, never touch grass again by grinding to become a top leaderboard player in renown, PvP with others to get an absurd player kill stat for intimidating 10-year-olds, and so much more. It's no exaggeration to say that Arcane Odyssey is one of the most advanced Roblox RPG games to ever come to the platform, which is even more impressive if you consider the fact that the sole developer Vtex is responsible for 90% of everything in the game right now. But despite all of this, the game is seemingly dying shortly after its release. It went from almost 100,000 players upon launch, and for the first week it averaged around 50,000. However, in recent times that number has fallen from grace all the way down to an average active count of 5,000. But why? How could such a massive, so content-filled, complex and advanced game fall off so quickly? Well, there are a few reasons. However, in my opinion, the two biggest reasons that is causing for this decline in popularity is the unoptimization of the game and the lack of point and replayability. However, in this video I will try to explain to you why I think the game for the majority of players becomes quite boring after you've completed the game. Despite everything I've stated above that you are able to do in Arcane Odyssey, why even do them in the first place? Even though boss loot is quite uncommon, I wouldn't even say it's rare. You could easily get pretty much all of a boss's loot within a day of grinding unless you're just incredibly unlucky. Quests have no meaningful value or reason to do them after you've reached max level, unless you're trying to get a badge that's only real purpose is to flex you touch grass less than other players. I can understand why fishing is a fun activity though, as there are many things that you could catch, including the sunken set of armor and sword, which is insanely rare to get. But for other things such as fighting pirates for loot or taking them from underwater structures, there is barely anything new you could possibly find in them after looting about 100 of them, with the exception of a million boat sails that you will never ever use in your life. Even things such as cooking becomes meaningless after you've reached perfect level, which to be honest isn't that hard to do in the grand scheme of things, and I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but I can take a pretty good guess that the majority of players don't want to be sitting there spamming Q and E to cook for multiple hours straight just to be able to cook food that's a little bit more potent than its default counterparts. Now please keep in mind everything I've talked about so far would only apply to people who play Arcane Odyssey for its PvE, which is likely most of the player base considering you see the amount of hate combat gets in the game for being completely unbalanced and build dependent on whoever has the more stupidly strong build. However, with the recent updates and changes, hopefully combat will become more balanced, as the biggest problem in the equation pre-update was metal and magma mages doing nearly 1000 damage per AoE attack. So maybe at some point soon combat will become a lot more appealing to the general PvE enjoyers, as they can finally actually PvP without having to worry about getting annihilated by meta mages with 2 attacks. However, this brings me on to the second problem with the game that I also believe is responsible for its downfall, and that is the game is just so fucking laggy. Now, I'm no developer with in-depth knowledge in how game development works, and so I don't want to say things that simply isn't accurate, but come on! How can you expect people to actually want to PvP when over 50% of the players probably can't even run the game faster than 40 FPS, not even during combat, never mind actually fighting? I've literally ordered a few hours ago about $500 worth of new PC hardware just so I can play this game without lagging to death. Considering the total amount of kids that play Arcane Odyssey, you can't expect all of them to have high-end gaming computers that are actually able to run the game well. But we're going a little bit off topic here because I originally was wanting to talk about how the game becomes boring, but this does loosely tie in because it could really affect the amount of boredom one can get while playing this game. But anyways, what makes this game really enjoyable after a certain amount of progress almost entirely depends on one question. And that question you have to ask yourself is, why do I want to do this thing? Because if you don't have an answer to this question you've given to yourself, then you really aren't going to be doing it just for the sake of doing it, unless you're literally so bored with your life that there is something wrong with you. At the end of the day, Vtex has made an incredible game with amazing potential, but it's very much too early to draw conclusions on the game because of how early we are into the game's development. I'm sure almost everything about the game will either be changed or improved at some point. And the only reasonable time that we can draw concrete conclusions about the end quality of this game is whenever VTech either completes the game's development or just ends up giving up at some point along the way, which I'm hoping doesn't happen. This video was entirely made to inform you and bring a little bit of awareness on a few of the problems that are, in my opinion, detrimental to the game's activity on Roblox. And on that note, I hope you found this video helpful or funny or informative or something, and if you did, then why not hit that like button and leave a comment on what you think, and if you enjoy my content, then consider subscribing for daily uploads. This has been Aimsell, and I'll see you all later.